David knew what he was about. He knew what everybody was about. You know, it was back then. It was very, very. You know, the 70s and the 80s was very, including the 60s, was very, very treacherous. You know, the waters were very, 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 very harsh back then when it came to the gay community. And the Loft was a safe haven.
So, who are we speaking with?
You are speaking with Ricky Montalvo.
Who is Ricky Montalvo for people who don't know?
That's a good question. Who is Ricky Montalvo? Ricky Montalvo, which is me, the good old boy from Brooklyn.
Where in Brooklyn?
Actually, right now, Greenpoint, Brooklyn. But where it all began for me was the Lower East Side of Manhattan. That's where it all began for me. 1975.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where it all began.
Awesome.
Musically, meeting the people. And the funny thing is, I'm meeting the people, they were right across the street from me. So I didn't even know until maybe a week or two later. So wow. That's where it all began for me.
Where were you born and where did you grow up?
Born in Brooklyn, New York. Grew up in Brooklyn, but then from there I went, you know, my grandmother's house. She lived in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and then from there I just, you know, I've been with my grandmother all my life. So she was like more of my mother. She raised me, and then I've been with her ever since.
I want to change the interview format. I want to go focus on two topics. First, I want to focus on range music, and then we'll get into the Loft. So, what is range music?
Range music. That's a great question you asked me, and I'll give you a full breakdown of it. Range music, you know, one of the guys who did the range, said range. It was just a name that my friend Paul Cruz, he came up with. And one day he said to me, "Hey, Ricky, I'm getting some guys together and I want you to be a part of this." I said, "All right, who's the guys?" And then he gave some names. Like, "Oh, great, no problem." The name, you know, Hiram, Joey Gomez, Paul himself. And then he mentioned Albert Marrero, a wonderful person. And I said, "Beautiful." And I said, "Well, what do you want me to do? What we're going to do?" And he says, "Well, we're going to be doing music." But the range specifically was not one specific genre of music. It was all genres of music. You know, this was Paul's thing. And I'm like, you know, he said to me, "What do you think?" And I'm like, wow, you know, Paul, that's a great thing. Because, you know, if David did it, you know, playing during the party, the beginning of the party, we'll play a rock track, Led Zeppelin or maybe the Rolling Stones or someone. If it worked for him, it can work for us. So if you go on different genres, let's do it. That sounds great. We don't have to get so stuck up on one specific genre, which is, you know, house, or back then was more of disco. And even though the word disco was dying out, the music was still in the same realm of disco. So I said, "That's perfect. Let's do it." So that's where it all began, you know, for me and the guys, because of, you know, Paul saying let's play all different types of music. And then Joey, beautiful guy. I mean, that man has got a heart of gold. I know him for so many years. he lived here. He lived here in New York, and then he got through his job. He had to transfer for the last 2 years to San Francisco. And then when he finished and retired, then he moved back to New York, and he decided to say, you know what? We're doing music range, doing range music, and we're playing records basically, because we're not doing, even though we have the equipment, but we're more into the vinyl, and it's about keeping the vinyl music alive. So Joey decided, well, let's keep the name Range, and we'll sell records. I have contacts, and we can do that. And from there, we started from doing online, and then we were doing music sessions in different venues, restaurants, and then we started. When the pandemic hit, we all got together and we laid low for a while, and then we got back together and we started doing it in Paul's house. Then finally, we got a spot in a restaurant right now, present, and it's like a record shop, but more than a record shop. People, it's not big time. I can't say big time DJs, because you're not going to get a Dave Morales going to pop up and just say, he's coming from Italy, he's going to play there. I mean, that would be beautiful, but he's not going to fly from Italy to do that. So we'll have other DJs, just young DJs who are starting out, who knows how to play, who know the music, who love the music, and they listen to us and they follow us and they want to be around us and they want to hang out with us. So they just they grasp all the information and they just they compute it right into their brain, and they just. And I mean, one kid I know. He's amazing, Julian. He's such a talent, and I listen to all these young DJs, and it's just amazing how much information he grasps, and music is just he just plays like there's no tomorrow, but he enjoys it, and that's the fun of it. It's just the enjoy. It's about having fun, and that's basically it. So we sell records. We still have the RangeNYC.com online, and you can order it from online, or you can stop at the record shop. You can have something to eat, because it's a spot where you can eat, like somewhat like a lounge, and you can have something to drink, whether it's a beer or mineral water or a soda or something. But you're relaxing, you're talking with some people there, your guests. And or purchasing music or listening to music at the same time.
Oh, wow. Great. Is there anything else you want to say about Range Music before we switch topics?
Listen, Range, gang, everyone will get to hear this. Stop and check it out. You'll see me, you'll see Paul, you'll see Hiram. You'll see Albert and Joey, who is the person with the music, and he shares the music, and just come down to 53 Broadway down in Brooklyn, and we're right there, and it's a restaurant, outdoor, people eating outdoors, but you'll hear the music and you'll see us from the inside, and you'll see all the records all displayed and everything, and just come and check it out. It's great. I mean, you'll have fun.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So you were born in Brooklyn.
Yes.
Spent some time in the Lower East Side. Talk about growing up. What kind of music did you hear in the house?
Oh man, growing up as a child, I was listening to Spanish music, but I was listening to like one artist, Tito Rodriguez. That was the number one, Tito Rodriguez was the household name back then, especially for my mother's generation, because my mother, my uncles, they partied at the original Palladium, where now it's the Ed Sullivan Theater, which was directly across the street from the Ed Sullivan Theater in Manhattan. So the Palladium is originally the Palladium was directly across the street from the Ed Sullivan Theater. So the big bands back then were the hot name, Tito Puente, Machito, and Tito Rodriguez. So growing up as a child, as a little boy, my uncle was a saxophone player. He would go to the Palladium and party, but at the same time he was playing, and he played with. He did some sets with Charlie Palmieri. He did some sets with Mongo Santa Maria. He did some sets with oh my God, Cal Jada. So that was the music that I was growing up to, listening to back then. More of the jazz and Latin jazz, which was Cal Jada, Stan Getz, Tito Puente. That was the thing more for me growing up listening. And then as that started, getting more popular and getting that more and grasping that more, then come the other bigger bands, bigger artists like anybody in Fania Records back then, Johnny Pacheco, Willie Colon, Hector Lavoe, bands like artists like them. Was in the house we were listening to. And then for me, I was loving the Latin scene, but then came disco, and that's where it all happened for me, right there. Just Van McCoy. That was one. I think it was Van McCoy. Do the Hustle, if I'm not mistaken, and that's where, basically from there. I mean, right? Just from that, I was loving both genres of music, because I love. I'm a type of person that I love to hear when I'm hearing I don't want to hear someone doing everything in a recording studio. I like to hear people doing something in a recording studio. Everybody involved. Whether you have a drummer, you have a saxophone player, you have a trumpet, you have a trombone, you have a person playing congas, you have someone playing timbales, you have someone playing drums, everything. So that, to me, it's music. And I love both genres of music. I can't get into new stuff of today, but because it's so repetitious. As back then, everybody, even though you have all the Latin music and you had the Latin artists, everybody was still producing their music, but everybody had their own beat, their own sound. The same thing as in disco. So, I was Afro-Cuban. Oh my God, Afro-Cuban music, I love it.
Define Afro-Cuban music, because people define it differently. How would you define Afro-Cuban music?
I define basically everything. A lot of people don't. There are many people out there who do understand it, and there are many people who don't understand it. They don't know. So for the people who don't know, music, it all generated from Africa. You have all the like the congas, all the bongos, everything was handmade by the trees in Africa, and you had and the people who by hand, carving it out and making that sound, and taking raw hide from an animal and just drying it up and treating it the way they're supposed to be treated to make that skin. So when you're hitting that conga, that everything came from there. So it went from there straight into the Caribbean islands, Cuba, Barbados, you know, islands like that. So that's where, to me, is the Afro-Cuban.
Do you have particular bands that you love that you'd recommend people to check out? Or even songs? Well, or is it more of a sound?
There are many, but there's one group that I enjoyed. I don't know today if they're together or maybe one or two of the members passed away, but there's a group and they're from Africa and they play and sing and they play like they were born and raised in Cuba. And the group is called Africando. They have lots of albums that they did. Awesome music. I mean, it's just amazing. But they're singing their language, but they're doing, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, they were supposed to be, I think it was in the 90s, there was a movie, before the movie, there was some guys from Canada went to Cuba, and they were looking for the lost musicians before Castro took over the island. They were playing and they were performing and they were recording. They had albums and they were not to be seen ever again because of the communism, regime back then and all the way to now. So in the 90s, there was these father and son, well-known musician. He flew from Canada and he got his son together and they both flew to Cuba. And they found all these Cuban artists. One of them, Cachao, excellent bass player. He passed away also. But they found them and they did a recording, they did an album, and through the State Department and the officials in Cuba, they got all the guys and brought them here to New York to perform in Carnegie Hall. And the group is called the Buena Vista Social Club. Awesome. If you see the movie, you see the video, it's like if you see back then from the 90s, and you see how it is back then, they're still living the same way from even back from the 60s. They're still living the same way today, having those old 1940 cars, running them like there's no tomorrow. It's amazing how they live, and they're happy. They're happy. But they got them all together and they performed out here. Amazing. I love Cuban music, and I love anything that's done in Africa and in Cuba. I just love it. It's part of me. It's just part of me.
Gotcha. So, by the way, I cut you off. You were talking about you heard all kinds of music in the house: Afro-Cuban music, Latin music.
Yes.
Gotcha.
I heard Joe Cuba and Eddie Palmieri, Ray Barretto, Machito, Cachao, Tito Rodriguez, Stan Getz, Cal Jada. Oh my God, Mongo Santa Maria. And there was another musician, super talented. This man, I think he was born with a pair of sticks in his hands. His name is Willie Bobo. This man knew how to play the timbales that no other person can play today. This man knew how to play. He did a cut with Cal Jada and Mongo Santa Maria, the night in Indonesia, and oh God, it's another one. It's in the album Demasiado Caliente that Cal Jada did. And oh man, Mambo something. I forgot the name, the full name. I know it's Mambo something. But when he solos, Willie Bobo, oh my God, this man, there's only, to me, everybody had the whole hypes with Tito Puente, and I'm not knocking him, may his soul rest in peace. Great, great musician. But Oresto Vilato and Nicky Marrero, he was my teacher, taught me how to play timbales, and Willie Bobo were, as a matter of fact, talking about Willie Bobo, my uncle, when I was born, we were living in Brooklyn, in East New York. And at that time, living in the projects was the projects, was fabulous living in those days, in the projects, because it wasn't crazy, it was no violence, there was nothing like that. It was, everything was was respectful, So Willie Bobo came to the house, from what stories was said to me, and he held me in his arms. And my uncle was like, he was getting his teachings through playing saxophone. Like I said, he played with Cal Jada. He did some sets with Cal Jada. Like, like now that they have these lounges and stuff like that. So back then they go to the neighborhood club and they had live bands and they needed a saxophone player and they would call, we need you to play for a set tonight and, we'll pay you this amount, such and such. And my uncle did it with Mongo Santa Maria. Before they all became super popular, they already had a name, but they didn't have that status yet. They just were starting, that wheel was starting to turn. So, and history from there, that's where it all came from. That's where it all began for me, being around that. Wonderful music. I gotta say, if it wasn't for my uncle to instill that in me, listening to Latin jazz, listening to jazz, Count Basie, listening to Dizzy Gillespie, Stan Getz, listening to great musicians, and then, I mean, if it wasn't all that, I don't know if I would be, I would enjoy music today. I don't know. I may be or maybe not. I don't know. But I got to say that if it wasn't for that generation of music, it was amazing, because listening to that sound and then watching the people there talk about their stories when when I talk about my stories of going to the clubs and going back then, and then I listened to the generation before me, they were partying, suits and ties and, the shirts were all, fine pressed, crease all lined and play, and hair had to been in place and everything, and well groomed, and listening to that and watching that and seeing clips and seeing pictures, it was just, I guess that was the nucleus for me to that went inside me and build that all inside me and help me into music.
Oh, that's awesome. Let's talk about your childhood. You mentioned you were kicked out of your house at 14.
Yes.
What happened? Talk to people about that.
Growing up, I had my differences, with my mom, and, I love her today. That's my rock, my mom. And I gotta say this, and I tell this, and I say this to people. Please don't get what I say wrong about my mom. You know what? Because I praise my mom today, because if it wasn't for my mom and what she did, I wouldn't be the man that I am today because of her. So I bow and tip my hat to my mom all the time. Matter of fact, I got to give her a call because she called me and I missed a call today. So I got to call her definitely to call her tomorrow. But we had our differences, growing up, was hard back then, as a child. Um, there were, you were loved and you weren't loved. So, and there were abuses and there were non-abuses. So, it was a hard childhood for me. Was very hard. But I, like I said, I don't take nothing back. I don't, I love my mother, and I every day I thank her. I thank her because she, I can breathe. I can open up my eyes and say, thank you, mom. And when I call her and I speak to her, she makes my day, I make her day. She's dying to see me ever since this pandemic. We haven't seen each other, so, but we're going to be seeing each other soon. So she is she's the rock of my music, because she was the one that, for what she did, she was the one that opened the door for me. I got to say it that way. There's no other way. I mean, she had her reasons, and it took many years for me to understand that. And as I got older and finally realized, hey, life is too short to worry and think about things like that. And I say, hey, mom, it's water under the bridge. Let's forget about this. It's nothing. You know what? Thank you. Because if it wasn't for you, I don't know where I would be today. I'd be 6 feet underground, or I have a police record that would go from one state to the next state. That would be that's how long it would be. So thank you very much. And those differences that we had, I mean, she was very, I guess they, the generation of the generations back then, like my mom's generation and my dad, I guess they didn't want their children to have those things, what they went through. In other words, if they experienced some bad things going out to the Palladium, I guess maybe they had that fear. And then at that time, from the 40s and the 50s, generation to generation, things started changing. And then, with all the stuff, the civil rights movement and all the violence, I mean, I've seen a lot of things as a child that, what's going on today, it's, for me, and no disrespect for anybody, and no disrespect to no one at all. I respect everyone's opinions and rights, but the stuff that goes on today, I've seen it back then, and it was worse back then. It was worse back then. I mean, growing up, you go into school, and as soon as you open the front door of the building, there's a body laying there. That's how bad it was back then. You had the Vietnam War, you had the civil rights movement, you had, the riots going on in Brooklyn and Manhattan and the Bronx and everywhere, all over. Then you have the protests going on against the Vietnam War and people living in poverty. And then you had they had the young generation. So all that, I guess that's why the parents back then, they were really strict. They didn't want, they didn't want their sons and daughters to fall into that, what they fell into. It was different back then, when they were going to the Palladium. it was hard back then for them too, but it was different. So I guess that's what you know, they didn't want that. But as for me, I was you know, I was a little bit, I can't say a little bit, I was very rebellious. You know, I was, I guess, I was the tough guy in the house, and I wanted to do it this way. You know, my mother would say, no, you're not doing it this way. Just not allowed to do that. I did it, but I did it anyway. I did it behind her back, and if it cost me to get my behind kicked, then I got my behind kicked. That's the bottom line. But she one day, I forgot the name of the club, a disco actually, and you know, I already knew what the clubs were happening, all the discos was going on, and I already knew that because all my friends that I was growing up with were adults, because I didn't have, you know, at the age of 14, I had 14-year-old friends. My first girlfriend was 18, so I was growing up with people older than me, and they were going to, you know, adult clubs and going to, you know, Latin clubs and going to this club and going to that club. So I wanted to experience that. So the guys got together and said, we're going to go to this club. We're going to go to this disco. And, all right, no problem. So you going? I said, yeah, I'm going to go. So I told my mother, and she said, well, you're going to come, you better be home before 12. I said, Mom, the party starts at 12. I can't come home at 12. You better be home at 12, because if you're not home, you're not home. And if it's 1 minute past 12, you're gonna get it. And I started weighing it out like a scale. I'm like, yeah, get my butt kicked, party, I'm gonna go party. I'm gonna go party. And I did. I got home at I got home at 5 o'clock in the morning. Opened the door quietly, tried to sneak in, and she was there, and she waited for me, and she beat my behind, and she tossed me out. Whatever little I had in my pocket, I don't remember how much money I had in my pocket. I think I might have had like a few bucks and some change. I don't know what that was, but it got me into the city. And I don't know how in the hell I made it into the city, because I didn't know, as a child, I knew how to travel on the trains with my grandmother, because she would come on a Friday to pick me up from my mother's, and we would travel on the trains together. So I knew that, but I didn't know how to do it on my own. So it was very scary, and I just did it. And I end up getting off, I never forget, it was Broadway Lafayette. And I only had, oh my God, I think it was maybe $3, $4, I think. I just had a few bucks in my pocket. I didn't have enough to buy a lot to eat. And I didn't know where to go. I knew my grandmother lived in Manhattan, and I didn't know how to get there. I know where in Manhattan, but I didn't know how to get there. So, and that's where it all began, right there and then. And that's from there, growing up, and that's where it all began as for me at the age of 14, and that's where I got to meet David.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was strange. It was crazy.
So you were homeless for a while, or you were living on the street, or what happened?
No, you know what? I got to say, this was a short stay in the street.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very short stay in the street, because I remember when I got out of the train station and I started walking 1, 2 blocks up north against the traffic, because the traffic is coming down south. I was on the other side, and I was walking. I was looking at the stores. I started, like, a couple of tears started coming down my face, because a lot of things started going through my head. I didn't know what to do. How am I going to live? How am I going to do this? I'm going to do that. Where am I going to go? Basically, where am I going to sleep? That's, you know, where I'm going to lay my head down. And I had all that in my head. And like I said, I knew where my grandmother lived, but I didn't know how to get there in Manhattan. She lived in the Lower East Side. I didn't know how to get to the Lower East Side. And that's where I got to meet David. And it was just by me standing there in front of a store. There's this guy inside the store, and there are many other, other customers there, and they were doing the thing. And this guy I was looking at him, and I went like this, and like, damn, am I seeing things or what? But he looks like Jesus Christ. I just like, something's wrong with me with that. I was totally, I don't know if I was alive or dead, but I said, you look like Jesus Christ. So, I just kept on looking, and then he saw me, and then he came out and bought whatever he bought, and he came out and stood right there beside me, and then he said to me, you hungry? And I didn't answer. And then he says, your mother and your father did right. They told you not to talk to strangers, and you're doing good. Don't speak to strangers. So when they say that, I go like this, and I look up to him like that. And then I look down, and I look straight into the store again. He goes into the store. Before he goes in the store, he says, I'm gonna pick something up for you. You can see me, you can watch me. And he had picked me up a sandwich. He picked up something for me to drink, and something else behind, I think was maybe some potato chips or cake or something like that. And then he came out and he said, look, here's for you, enjoy. And then he started walking, and he says, look, and then he turns around and says, look, I live here. You're welcome to go upstairs, or you could sit here on the stoop and you can eat. Nobody's gonna bother you. I live upstairs. You can sit there and eat. So that's what I did. I sat there and eat. But then I'm listening to, I hear this music, doom, 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 doom. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I'm eating, and then I'm doing this. I'm like, what is going on? So I was intrigued by it. I didn't get to go all the way in, but as soon as I got upstairs, there was this guy at the door. I love him, but he was mean back then. But I love him today. I miss him very much. Dear, dear, dear friend, Steve D'Acquisto, another DJ. He also was a producer.
What's his name? Steve what?
Steve D'Acquisto.
D'Acquisto, okay, huh?
And he was at the door. Him, Steve Abramowitz, this guy was a character. Steve Abramowitz, man had a stone face. He would not talk to if he didn't know you, he would not talk to you. He'll look at you like he was like maybe an FBI Secret Service agent. And he was just one of those guys. He was just like that, but really, really down to earth. And he was at the door too. And they said, Steve D'Acquisto stops me. Where are you going? You're not allowed to be here. You're not supposed to be here. What are you doing? Get out of here. And, I said, I told him the guy with the long hair and the big mustache told me I can come and see. No, you can't stay here. You have to go, young man. You have to go. So I, no disrespect, okay. I have to respect my elders because he was older than me. I had no choice, And that's what they teach you as a young man. They teach you that. So I did, I left. But as soon as I was getting ready to go downstairs, I turned around. As soon as I'm getting to go downstairs, here comes David running. He saw me, he came running. And they had, him and Steve D'Acquisto had some words, and Steve D'Acquisto came back and he says, I'm sorry, I apologize. And I said, no, that was it, and then David said to me, I guess Steve was looking out for David. And then David said, listen, I got to take you home. Where do you live at? And I said, my grandmother lives on the Lower East Side. And he said, okay, so Lower East Side where? And she lives on Henry Street at that time between Jefferson and Clinton Street. So come on, let's go and take you. And he took me there, and my grandmother was in the process of moving at that time. So when we got there, she wasn't there. So I said, where's your grandmother? And she said, maybe she's in the new apartment. So, and where's the new apartment? I says, Rucker Street? Is that her name? Oh yeah, Rutgers. Yeah, I know it's that. He knew. And we went there. He took me to the building. He says, is that the building your grandmother lives? I said, yeah, that's the building. Then I told him the apartment, 17C. And he took me up there, and that's where, right there and then, he says, whoa, wait a minute. You're here. Tommy lives across the street, and Michael Capella goes there also to see Tommy. Okay, great. We have beautiful. It was all perfect because David said it was perfect. I fine-tuned everything. I'm happy now. That's what he said. I fine-tuned everything, which at that time, I did not understand what he meant by fine-tuning. I don't know what he meant by that. So we went upstairs. He took me to my grandmother, and he told my grandmother, listen, I told my grandmother what happened, and she started, going off, and she started crying and stuff like that because, I'm her favorite grandson. I'm a grandson. I'm her baby, but at the same time, I was more than her grandson. I was her son. And that's the thing that hurt her a lot, that that her own daughter would do something like that. So when she told her son, my uncle, all hell broke loose and stuff like that, and some words exchanged and things like that back then, but she thanked David, and David, and she thanked him and thanked him and thanked him. And he said, no problem. As humble as he was and very quiet and very, he was very, very refined. He was very, David was the type of person that if you were hanging out with him and if you were doing something and you had an idea and he entailed, fine-tuned your idea and made it work, he was the type of person that he would want you to take the full credit instead of him. That's how he was. He'd rather for you to take the 100% credit, and he would be happy with that, with not taking nothing at all. But by seeing you with a smile on your face, he was blessed with that. He was happy with that. And that's where it all right there. And then practically almost every Friday, he would stop during the day or late evening. I would say in the late afternoon, early afternoon, late afternoon, around 3, 4 o'clock. Dinner time, he would be there. And he was crazy about having rice and beans. Loved his rice and beans. He loved rice and beans, and if he didn't have it on that Friday, I would get, my grandmother would make like pot of white rice, a pot of beans. She would do broil, in the oven, half of a pork shoulder, or she'll do pork chops, or she'll do steak with onions, or she'll even do meatloaf, and she'll pack everything up, and I'm going, jumping on a cab or jumping on a train and heading right down to the loft to sit down with David and have a dinner and everything like that, and jump back in the cab and come back home with all the dirty dishes or with the dirty pots, or all the pots will be washed. And I bring back clean pots and everything. But we would sit down and have, and the coolest thing about it was that if he didn't show up, he already had the table prepared. It was a round wooden table with chairs around it. And it would be under the mirror ball, this big giant mirror ball with all the balloons and all the lights. And then he's having soft music, whether it's jazz or classical. Because David always said, do not play when you listen to house or you listen to disco and anything that's going boom, 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 you're listening for that one day. There is no reason to consume yourself listening it from that day, the next day, the following, the following, the following. Before you know it, you're burnt out. You don't want to listen to that. Listen to one day, go back to bringing yourself down, relaxing, listen to classical music, listen to jazz. And then the anticipation when it came to Friday, you already knew that either you're going out Friday night or you're going out Saturday. You knew that you're going to listen to some great music. And he always said that to me. Don't burn yourself out with that, because that'd be the fastest way to burn yourself out in music. I said, okay, no problem, Dave. I'll do what you say. And that's it. And he would call my grandmother Mama. How's grandma? How's mama? I said, she's fine, David. She's asking for you. I'll tell mama that I'll be there. I'll be there during the week. If not during the week, I'll be there on Friday. I said, okay. I'm gonna let her know. You know how she gets if you don't show up. Yeah, no, I'll be there. No, Ricky, tell her, I'll be there. Okay, all right, Dave, I got you. I got your back. And that we just, people that know David, that work with David, don't know. They might know a lot of things. David was very, very, very private. He wanted you to know certain things, but yet at the same time, he didn't want you to know other things. That's how private he was. And the only way to get all that from him, you had to show an attitude like I did. Look, it's like everybody, like with yourself, you have your home, you have your computer equipment, you have a car, you have everything that you have. I don't want it. I don't want to know how you got it. So if you have that attitude, you don't want it, and you don't want to know how you got it, then David would be calm and relaxed, and then he'll bring you in and show you things, because there were so many people that wanted, they wanted to be around David, and they wanted this. I was the opposite. I don't want to know what you have, and I want to know this, and I don't want to know that. And even if he was alive today and working with him, no, I still didn't want to, because it's none of my, I guess that attitude is none of my business. So I always kept that like that, and he, if he saw that you didn't want anything, then he say, okay, I'm comfortable with you. And then I'm just going to, I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to pull you in. And he did. I mean, I was, blessed and overwhelmed with all the stuff that he showed me and taught me. He's the part of that, like I said, my uncle. Well, David is the same. David sits in that same pedestal with my uncle musically, because they both instilled that in me. There is no reason for you to be focused on one genre of music. There's so many vast music out there that you need to listen to. And David listened to anything and everything. He'll listen to Latin music. He'll listen to this and he'll listen to that. He didn't care. He just listened to it. And that was the blessing part about it for me.
From when did you actually start going to the Loft as a participant?
1976. 75, I got to meet David. Let me make sure that I want to make sure my math is correct. Let me make sure here. 1975. No, excuse me. It had to be like it had to be 76, 1976. David was, he wanted me to be around and be involved, but at the same time, David knew the way system was changing versus when he was growing up as a child, the difference. And, and I gotta follow, I don't need to follow the rules, but I have to follow rules because this young man needs to do what he's supposed to do and do it, with his family.
Do you remember how old you were?
I was 15, 16.
And your grandmother was okay with you going to the Loft?
My grandmother she was okay to a certain degree, but she knew that I was safe because of David.
Yeah.
She knew that I was safe. She knew that if I go out, back then I would come home 1, 2 o'clock, maybe. That's a stretch. But she knew that I would come home, somebody would bring me home. They would bring me to the door. They'd bring me upstairs and they bring me to the door. And, that was it. And she was okay with that. As I got older, then it was different, oh, you're growing up, when I turned 17, that was it. I'd be home, 5, 6 in the morning and stuff like that, but it was different, but she knew that I was safe. That's all she cared about. My mother was still, my mother started accepting it later on. But she was still a little bit rebellious about it. She wanted me to be like my brother. And I didn't want to be like my brother. My brother was a bookworm. And my brother was not only a bookworm, and I till today I praise him for it. He was a bookworm. I didn't want my little brother to follow in the footsteps that I did. I wanted him to grow up, go to school, and graduate out of high school, get yourself into things, do yourself, do the right thing. I didn't want him to follow in my footsteps. I didn't want, not even my sisters, nobody. I made my own path. This is my path. I don't want you to go on my path. And he, but he's been retired from the military now. I think 3 years now, 4 years. He made a lifetime commitment, career on it, and he followed his path. And the same thing for my sisters. So that was what I wanted. So, but my grandmother knew that, all in all, she knew that I was safe.
What's the biggest misconception about David Mancuso?
Wow, it's a good question. The bad misconception with David Mancuso, that people would say, people would speak, but they didn't know. That's the bottom line. You hear about all these things that go on, and about the clubs and discos and everything that's going on, the drugs and so on and so forth. It doesn't mean that this particular person is doing the same thing that like everybody else. You can't generalize, you know, just because he has balloons in his home doesn't mean that he's having a freak show going on in his home. Everybody had a way of living, a certain way of living. That's the way it is, you know. And that was the misconception about people that they had with David, that they thought that, you know, because he didn't have, and he did, but he had many different lamps. He had many different sofas. He had many different lounges to relax in. You know, then he had his own bed. He had his, and if you needed to rest, there was a whole bunch of, you know, a lounge spot right there. You just dropped yourself into it and you just a whole bunch of pillows and you just slept there. It was everything. It was different. And that was the misconception about, you know, with David, that they said, oh no, he was this way. And, you know, you don't know. You can't say that because you don't know the man. Not true. And which is again, not true. I mean, he was who he was. He had his own way of living. So did Larry. Had his own. Larry had had a home way of his own way of living, and he lived his way, and David lived his way. David lived the way that, you know, he's a boy from upstate New York. You know, the people back then in upstate that live in the country, they live. That's the life that they live. You know, so that's David's life. Larry didn't live in the country. He went to the country millions of times, but he had a different way of living, and that's the misconception that people had. You know, until they saw it, then they like, oh, wow, that's amazing. You know, then they start thinking twice.
There's a narrative that David was an orphan. Is that true or false?
Very true. Very, very true.
Okay.
He's always, you know, he's looking down at me right now, and I'm laughing because he always said this story. Oh my God, Sister Teresa. It was a Catholic orphanage, upstate New York. Sister Teresa, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it is Sister Teresa. He said to me, yeah, you know, she put my bed right there where the fire alarm was, and my job and my duty was to ring that fire alarm. So my friends in my room, nobody got hurt. And he was so proud of that, just to ring that, you know, when there was a problem and everybody needed to evacuate, he rang that fire bell. Ding, 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 ding. He was very, very proud of that because his friends, and he was very proud of the fact that, you know, he would have his, you know, their birthdays all together, sitting in a table around a square table, and have a cake in the middle. And he was very, very proud of that. Very, very proud. That I gotta say that's, you know, for some people, they don't see it that way. You know, they see negative behind it. And David didn't see it like that. David, you know, he was the same thing as me, that, you know, our parents did things and there were reasons for it. That's their reasons. And okay, that's your reason. You know what? Thank you, because you made me who I am today. And I'm glad to be here today. So that's how he was. He was, you know, beautiful family. I tell you, I got to meet his mother. Oh my God, God rest her soul. She was the typical Italian woman. One of those old time Italian women that were dressed in black, and they have this white little ruffle thing around there in their shirt, on their blouse. She would have a black sweater, and she had her hair, you know, beautiful white, beautiful silky white hair. Typical Italian woman. And he came to me, said, Ricky, I want to introduce you to my mother. I could tell you the truth. I was scared. I was very scared. And he says, are you okay? He says, David, I'm scared. I says, no, don't be scared. It's my mom. He says, the way I met your mother is the way you meet my mother. And when he said that, I said, okay. And I got to meet her and he introduced me to her and he said, Mama, this is my friend, Ricky. Ricky, this is my friend. This is my mama. And it was, and I said, nice to meet you, Mama. And she took my hand and she embraced me. She embraced me. David, I was sharing with that one day with David, and David says, oh my God, my mother did that? He said, David, you were right there. You were standing right there when you introduced your mother. And I got that same time, I got to meet his sister also. It's beautiful families, nephews, nieces. You know, he comes from a very, very beautiful family, you know.
So
And
then,
David,
how come he was in an orphanage? What's the story there?
Parents back then, due to hard bringing up kids, and back then it was very, very hard. You don't have a place, you don't have enough room. What do you do? Not enough food. What do you do? There were certain, you couldn't toss the kid out in the street. Unfortunately, it happened to me, but it was different back then. In the 50s and the 40s, it was way different back then. And then she was and I can say this, meeting her more than I got to meet her more. I got to speak to her maybe 4 or 5 times. I've never got an indication she was a very bad mother. She was a very good mother. And David didn't, and David, the amazing part about it was that David had a heart of gold. He didn't take it like, my mother, I can't stand my mother. I hate my mother. He was not like that at all. He had some issues, the same thing I had issues too with my mom, but it wasn't to that extreme. It was not at all, not to the extreme. He was good. He felt very, very honored to have his introducing his mother to his friends. He was very happy with that. He may not show it in face, but you look into his eyes, you saw it, you can feel it, that he was very happy. And that was the greatest part about with David.
3-part question. Imagine this interview is being watched for beginners. So who is David Mancuso, for someone who doesn't know the background and history of his relevance? What is the Loft? That's the second part. And then the third part is, what does a Loft mean to you? So the David Mancuso for beginners, what is the Loft? Just explain what the Loft is or was, and then what does the Loft mean to you? So go ahead.
Okay, who is David Mancuso? David Mancuso, for those who don't know David Mancuso was I gotta say, he was an innovator musically. He was an innovator. He, the craziest things that everybody that back in the days, they would come to David and they would say, David, what do you think about this person playing in my spot? And David would say, he would shake his head and go, yeah, thumbs up, all right. David musically did a lot of things where, like I said, he was the innovator. He did, for those who don't know about him, David was who started out the first record pool. David was the first one who started with the hanging tweeters. Clubs today are hanging tweeters because of David. David started that on Broadway.
Tell people what a tweeter is.
The tweeter is the very, very It's a small speaker. And that speaker is that produces the sound, the high sound. The when you're tapping on a cymbal, that high sound. And he came out with that concept, and later on, as he got into more involvement in audio, he says, wait a minute, you can't have it hanging and the sound is up there. It has to come and generate around the people. So that's how he did it. He was not only that started out and did everything before anybody else did, but he was a very genuine man, very, very genuine man. Musically, he had a lot of involvement in music with a lot of big name artists. And he had people that would go there and see him that didn't he would think that didn't know him, but did know him. So David was also, he was very private. He believed in whatever he did in his personal life. There's no reason for me to advertise my personal life to everybody. My personal life is my business, and I choose to share my personal life to whoever, whenever I'm ready to choose to, let them person in to see my personal life. But he was very, very, very refined. The second question, the Loft. The Loft is the same as your home, my home, everybody's home. People today, when they do, I don't think they do parties anymore, but they do get-togethers versus, having music and dancing and, the night away and stuff like that. But growing up, that was the thing for us. And that was the thing with David. His way was did it different. Why, this person would do it this way, this other person would do it that way, this other person would do it that way. I'm gonna do mine's different. And it worked. It really, really worked. He did it, and it was amazing. It was just amazing how he came to do all this. It was just, and how he got people together. There's one person that says it today, and it's funny how he says it. John Jellybean Benitez, really nice guy. He says that, I don't know how, and I can never figure it out. David plays a record, lets the record play, and then he plays the next record, he blends it into the next, or there's a 2-second pause. But that 2-second pause, he's saying, but they're clapping. They're clapping at David. I can never figure that out, how he does it. And then brings in that next record. And that was David. David was also had a sense of humor and a half. Oh my God, you can never go out with him, especially if you go out drinking. Forget it. He won't stop laughing. Then then he's laughing, and then you start laughing, and then after a while you're laughing. Your tears are coming down. You say, "Why am I laughing? I don't know what the joke is," and you're laughing. So that was David. David was very intelligent. He was very smart. When it came to, he always looked out for everybody's well-being, especially their ears. He was very, very, very conscious about that. He didn't want you to listen to music with enormous bass, an enormous mid-range, enormous tweeter sound, the trebles. He didn't want that. It had to be a certain way that you can enjoy the music and you still can hear everything in that. You can hear that little triangle ding. You get to hear that, and that's what he wanted you to hear. And he was the only person that, it was amazing how after every party, as tired as he was, as worn out as he was, he stood there on a Sunday night, all night by himself, and was balancing the sound system, perfecting the sound system for the next party. With no sleep, tired, mind you, tired. And he, numerous of times I walked in, I turned the key and walked right in, and David's on there, and he's either behind the booth or he's in the front, right directly, dead center under that mirror ball, too precise. And he was balancing the sound system. And if he felt there was something not, right, he'll go walk from the way he was. He'll have that ladder there, and he have his meter right there, and he'll go back and he'll check the cables, and he'll do this and do that. You're talking gold connections. He would, he'll replace new ones and put brand new ones in there again. This was every weekend, and perfecting that sound. And tell you, there were people that would go there to the Loft, and they would come back, and they were the next day, and their ears, no ringing, no this, no that. He was comfortable. As long as he's comfortable, and his thing was, my friends, as long as my friends are comfortable, I'm happy. And that's how he was.
You had a key to his house.
Yeah.
So you were family.
Yeah, we for so many years working with him, and I didn't want the key. I said, David, I'll come when you're here. And, no, Ricky, no. What happens if I need you and I'm not here? Who's gonna watch the place? Who's gonna feed Wolfie? You need to come by. You'll work for me. We're working together. No. Please take my keys. You're not gonna do nothing. And let me tell you something. I had a radio, and this is how good he was. He had a guest over. I don't know. Never ask, is none of my business. That person stole my radio, and that was the Sanyo boombox, but this one held 10 batteries. Double cassette. This thing weighed, and I left it there. And then I came back to go and get it, to bring it home, to go home. And I came there and I said, David, my radio's gone. Did you see it? He said, wait a minute. No, I didn't. No, I did see it. That was your radio sitting there? I said, yeah. He said, so-and-so took it. And let me tell you, there were people that had situations with David, but David never treated me the way, there are other people that had situations with him. David went in his pocket. He says, look, come by we're gonna come by. You have to come by on Wednesday. Wednesday, come early. We're gonna go to the store. I'm gonna buy you an exact radio. I owe that to you. And he did. We went on a Wednesday. I came there in the afternoon. He says, Ricky, we go to the store. We're going to go to get a bite to eat. And the number one spot, it was Rocco's Italian restaurant, right in Thompson Street in the Village. And we would go there and we sat there and eat. And he was very righteous about that. He was very respectable. When it came to something that belonged to you, and if it was missing, or damage, he said, you know, it's my home, it's my responsibility. You know, my job is to take care. If I have to take care of I got to take care of my things, my audio equipment and all that. Then also my furniture, and I got my cat. I got to take care of my, you know, anybody else's things that belong to them. And that's how he was. You know, he was that way at all, you know, all the time. But, you know, working with him for so many years, and whew, it was amazing. But I gotta say, it was an adventure. That I have to say, it was an adventure, because of him, I remember one time I went to Studio 54 and I couldn't get in. I came back to the Loft. I was very disappointed. Said, Ricky, what's the problem? Said, I'm upset. So what are you upset about? Said, I can't get into studio. They won't let me in. Okay. No problem. No problem at all. Are you going next week? This is, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to go there. You should go. I said, no, I don't want to go there. I don't want to be disappointed again. I don't want to be disappointed, David. I don't want to go there again. I don't like to be embarrassed. So no, go back. And he kept on talking to me, and he was telling me, go back. And I didn't want to, because I was embarrassed. I didn't want to be embarrassed again. I really didn't want to. I don't like being embarrassed. And I did. I ended up going. And let me tell you, I don't know what was said. I don't know what the conversation was. All I know is as soon as I got to studio, right there in front of the velvet ropes, there were people in front of me, and Steve Rubel went like this, and he went waving me on, and everybody got out of the way. He said, hi, Ricky, how are you? Come right in. I was like, I stopped for a second, like, what? Oh, okay. And I went in, I got into Studio 54.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know what happened. Like I tell you, David, I gotta say, there is no other way of saying it. People knew him, and where from the Long Island clubs to every venue in America knew David, especially in the recording business. Every company, from the smallest record company to the big name record company, everybody knew David. There was no way of, and the funny thing about that the artist, the well-known artist, knew David, and he didn't even know the well-known artist. That was the craziest thing. Like I said, I mean, one day, I'm hanging out there, doing my thing, going to this massive Rolodex. We had, at that time, there was no such thing as computers. There was no such thing as, you know, tablets, and we wrote things on a Rolodex from A to Z. David had a big one that held, oh my God, it had to be like maybe 2,000 cards. This thing was, it was humongous. It was crazy big. But he had from A to Z, from the smallest to the well-known biggest record companies all over the world. And he had me, Ricky, this record, and I'm going like this, looking for, oh, I got to go through Z. I got to find Z. I got to find M, and I got to look stacks of names, and I have to go and it was crazy making those phone calls. I remember making a phone call to London to Virgin Records back then when Virgin Records first came out. And I told, he says, I told, and they said to me, yes, can I help you? How you doing? My name's so-and-so, Virgin Records. And yeah, hi, how you doing? My name's Ricky. I work with David from the Loft here in the US. Oh, the Loft. Yes, yes, yes. What happened? Did you receive any records? No, that's what we were wondering. No problem. We're gonna put him in, and at that time was, well, so like today, you know, you have the UPS, FedEx, and the Postal Service, but he FedEx that next day. And we, from one record, we're supposed to get one record, we end up getting 2 boxes of records. 2 boxes of records. There were times, if I tell you, there were times, oh man, from Monday to Wednesday, and I get there Wednesday, I had to be like maybe 30, 40 boxes of records. This was every week at with no fail, every week. From the smallest record company to the biggest record companies, David was getting boxes and boxes of records. And again, like I said, when he did his first started the record pool, he was getting records from, it didn't matter who, he was getting records for promoting promotional records for Fania records and this company and that company. He was getting, it was nonstop, at least 30 to 40 boxes a week, nonstop, with no fail.
Was David the only DJ at the Loft?
David, yeah, he was. If he wanted to take a break like that Saturday, even though sometimes he would be there, but he won't come out at all. He'll stay in his room. And that's how crazy David was. He would stay in his room through the whole entire party. If he didn't go upstate, he would stay in his room, or he would go to someone in that, a friend of ours that we knew, and they were like, maybe they lived down the block and they stay over, he'll stay over, you know, just for one night or something like that. But he would have, sometimes he would have maybe Steve D'Acquisto may play, sometimes Freddie Taylor. She was a record distributor upstate New York. And she lived in the Lower East Side too. She sometimes would play if David was not going to be there, or he wanted to rest for that weekend. He wanted to take a rest, and then when they both had cut ties with David, you know, they had other things they wanted to do. They wanted to, you know, see things and do things, and you know, then David would say, Ricky, I need your help. And I would say, you know, what's up, David? I need you to, are you available for Saturday? I need you Saturday. I said, David, I'm always there Saturday. We talking about available. No. I need you to play. I said, oh God. And they would say, you know, every time I would say, oh God, you know, because the fear would kick in. And the fear was, you know, you're talking, I think maybe I could afford to pay it back then with the money that I was making. Oh man, you know, you 17, 18-year-old, you had a job, but you're making 900 one day, 800 one day. You got a salary because you got a job. I got a job. I had a 9-to-5 job.
What was your job?
I remember I told David, he says, oh God, Ricky, please, you could do better than that. I was working in a mailroom. I got my first job working in the mailroom. And he said, oh God, you're gonna deliver my mail, Ricky? Come on. And I'm like, no, it's not that type of mailroom, David. I'm not working for the Postal Service. You know, he was, but you know, he was.
And you would make 900 in one night.
Yeah, and that was on a regular night. On a holiday, no lie, on a holiday, which was the best holiday. The best ones were Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. All three of those holidays. Just one day, it would be 1,200, 1,300. Yes, with a salary. You know what it is? A 17, 18-year-old. I didn't have time to spend the money that I made that night. Here comes next week. I got another envelope. It was money hand over fist. So I knew, you know, maybe I could afford to, if I damaged the system by accident, not, you know, not maliciously or purposely, I think I would be able to afford to pay it, to get it fixed and, you know, repaired and everything. And that was my thing in my head. I was so scared because, you know, you're talking one turntable alone, especially the turntables that he had back then. Oh my God, $4,000, $3,000 back then, something like that. And then he got himself this engineer, this Japanese engineer. It was so crazy. He was so happy about that. He was like a kid getting their first little racing car. That's how happy he was. He got himself this set of needles that were done in Japan. They're called koitsu. And these needles, the cartridges are made of different material. You can get one made out of onyx. You can get one made out of rosewood. You can have one made out of sapphire, different stones and different woods. And he was like overwhelmed with that. And he had the black onyx and he had the rosewood. So by that time, you're talking the turntable, that's one price. And you're talking at that time, that cartridge was about $2,000. Now in today's market, and they only made 3 or 4 of them a year. Yeah, that's how, yeah. So now this turntable, the Mitchell Cotter turntable, and then the Koitsu, the Mitchell Cotter back then was like $2,000 to $3,000. Now you're talking $60,000 today. The Koitsu, from $2,000 to $3,000, you're talking $25,000. They're massive, I mean, expensive. So back then, $2,000 to $3,000, it was, you know, I can't say, I'm not going to say it was nothing, it was something, but I was scared. I was worried. I didn't know, I didn't want to do something to, you know, I was scared. He said, and he would say, Ricky, stop putting the barrier of fear in front of you. You'll never accomplish anything by you having that barrier in front of you. Stop putting that shield in front of you. And like I said, David, people know David because they know him for what he is, and he is this way. But in the private world, in the private life of David, that's how he talked to me. That's how he told me things. He was very, very, he was my friend, but he was more my brother. And all he wanted was the best for me. And he wanted the best for everybody. And like I said, it had to be, you had to it had to be a certain, it had to be a way for you to get drawn in with him, that he had to pull you in. Because if he knew you were about just only wanting things from him because he was well known and because he can get this and he can get that, he had no, there was nothing for you. He had no conversation for you. And he was very, very, very giving. I mean, DJs there back then, who back in the 70s, when they had their own places and you know, time started changing and clubs started closing down and stuff like that, for new clubs, the old Electric Circus, Les Jardin, you know, clubs like them, you know, oh my God, Melons, the Gallery, you know, David, the DJs, David always said, come on, man, I give you a job. Come on, come on. I mean, he helped out Nicky Siano. Love him today. Great guy, love him today. Another DJ who I miss dearly so much. He was such a great, he was a sweetheart. He was a, you know, he was such a great person to talk to. He made you laugh. David Rodriguez. If you got a minute, I can show you a picture of him. I don't know if you see, this is, I'll point it out right here. Let's see, get a better shot here. Oh, okay. That's David Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm.
He was, he did a couple of remixes, and he did a couple of records for some big artists back then. But David helped out, you know, when David, you know, didn't have anything and he didn't have a place of, you know, he didn't have a spot to play. You know, David was very caring, and he took him in, says, come on, you got a job. Come on, you got a job. You know, didn't matter. Come on, don't worry about it. You got a job. And he did. He gave him a job. He gave everybody a job. That's how good David was, you know. And everybody, you know, David knew what he was about. He knew what everybody was about. You know, it was back then it was very, very, you know, the 70s and the 80s was very, including the 60s, was very, very treacherous. You know, the waters were very, 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 very harsh back then when it came to the gay community. And the Loft was a safe haven. I would have to say, it was like a safe haven for the gay community. People went there, you know, they had a problem, you know, they couldn't find a place to let their hair down and party and things like that. And let me tell you, I've met so many people in the community, and David made sure, told everybody, listen, show him respect. He's not, you know, and everybody treated me with so much respect, except Dave Rodriguez, because he was a clown. He was a clown. Dave Rodriguez was a clown. And he never disrespected me, but he was a clown. He knew how to, you know, to push my buttons, you know, and he was like that. But he was a wonderful person. And you know, another person, Larry Patterson. Oh my God, Zanzibars and Better Days. You know, Bruce Forrester, and you had Walter Gibbons and Kenny Carpenter. You know, all these cats. You know, they you know, everything was you know, with David, through David. You know, even Frankie Knuckles, even when you know, Nicky down the block had the gallery. You know, Nicky was on the corner of Houston. David was on the corner of Prince Street, down the block from each other. And you know, and it didn't matter. You know, David, you know, even he helped out. You know, he never turned his back on nobody. I got to say that. And if he did, two things. If he did, one, I didn't know about it, and two, that person might have deserved it. But otherwise, he never, I mean, he's always was the type of person that if he saw you, you know, if you weren't taking care of yourself the correct way, that he know that you can, he would do his damn best to tell you and help you. Listen, you need to get your shit in order. You got to get your life in order. And David was very, very adamant about that. Don't worry about my life. My life is, you know, you need to take care of it. And that's how he was. He was like that. Like I said, if there was those two things, I didn't know about it, but he was there to help out. And that's how he was. You know, that's how he was with a lot of people. You know, he didn't have no type of there was no such thing as prejudice with David.
How long did he use just one turntable?
Oh man. Wow. We've always done two turntables. He stopped blending. He had, the way the system was set back then, he had a preamplifier with a volume control for one turntable and another preamp volume control for the other turntable. Both preamps were connected to the main amp and the other main amps that he had in another room. They were all Mark Levin. Everything was Mark Levinson amplifiers and preamplifiers. And mind you, one day Mark Levinson came to the Loft. It was an early afternoon, and he was a jazz musician, jazz artist. He played, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he played a saxophone. Mark Levinson, yeah, he was a musician, and he would blend. He didn't mix, and mind you, David had the very first mixer before the world of mixers came out. David had the first mixer that was made by Richard Long. Richard Long made his first mixer for David. And it was all, I think it was about this size, a dial with an imprint that you can put your finger and you can move the dial, move the dial with just the tip of your finger. You can do it this way or you can do it this way. That was the very first mixer that David had that was done by Richard Long. And he used it when he was up on top and looking downwards. And then he took the booth and he took that idea and says, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. I want to be with the people. I want to be down with the people. I want to experience what they're experiencing. And he had his, just like a stereo in a house party, you have your audio equipment there and all your friends are there and their girlfriends and you got family members there and you're having a Saturday night party. And that's how he did it. He just had it right there on the floor with everybody around them partying. And he, once he did that, I mean, he had Richard Long do that. Then he had the Mark Levinsons. After a while, I guess I don't know what compels him to, I guess he figured out, wait a minute, I don't need to have one preamp here, one preamp there. I can use one preamp and have both turntables connected to one preamp. All I got to do is switch channels, switch from A to B. Turntable will be A on my left. Turntable on my right would be the B turntable. So all I got to do is flip the switch. And it was somewhat a little bit hard because you have to time it right. I mean, going through that, and I had to experience that with that. So, but it was just the preamp right there. You got this big turntable here, this big turntable there, and just switch. Make sure you have your needles set and you're ready, and then boom, lower the volume, switch to A, switching it to B, and then bringing up. And the funny thing about that amplifier, the volume control. You know, today's volume, you can just turn it to all the way to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not this one. Just a millimeter turn. I mean, it's nothing, a hairline turn. And the system was loud. Loud enough that you were comfortable, loud enough that you can speak while the music's playing, and loud enough that you heard the other person speaking to you. That's how clean and balanced the system was. You know, and mind you, he started with Macintosh, heavy equipment, heavy. I never forget that he told me, Ricky, I need for you to move these speakers, you know, from here to here. I'm like, okay, that's all, you know, regular speakers. Anybody would think of, you know, you're gonna think of them and, you know, it's like nothing. It's just, you just pick it up and move it. No, I was fooled. This speaker had to be like, it had to be like 50 pounds a piece, and you have to move it from one section to the other. And then he would, everything was Klipsch on speakers. Everything was Klipsch. Nothing. If it was the Scalas, oh wow! I mean, there were. He had the boxes made, and they had to be everything was done mathematically. You know, everything had to be done, engineered mathematically. I mean, he had people like beautiful, nice man. I believe I think he's still with us, alive today. Lyric. Oh no, Lyric passed away. The Lyric Hi-Fi was is on 89th Street. That was the #1 spot that David went to, and they sell the Class A equipment. Alex Rosner, a well-known individual, and Alex Rosner has a history that would blow your mind. Would definitely. Alex Rosner is an engineer, a sound engineer. He's done numerous equipments for big venues all over the world. But Alex Rosner is it's from the Holocaust. He is a survivor, a Holocaust survivor in World War II. A young little boy. He survived that. I didn't know about it until later on in the years. As a matter of fact, he came out in the movie that I believe Steven Spielberg directed, Schindler's List. Yes, and Alex Rosner, they did the movie Schindler's List because based on the person Arthur Schindler, and he's saved a lot of Jews from being murdered, basically from the Germans. And he saved this little boy. And that little boy that's in the movie is playing the part of Alex Rosner. And Alex Rosner at the end goes to the cemetery to lay a little rock with the little boy who plays him on Arthur Schindler's burial sites, tombstone. And he very, 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 why he's just amazing, this man. What a sound engineer. I mean, he's amazing. And David dealt with people like that, and it was the thing is, if and they would have debates, math, when it came to that engineering aspect of that level, nah, I can't tell you. I didn't know nothing about that. I had to sit there and sit there and sit there to understand what they were talking about, because I did not know a damn thing on what they were saying. When it came to balancing the sound system, the how many decibels of this speaker should be producing, and this one and that one, and so on and so forth, and the way the position on the Mark Levinson amplifier. Now there's a wrong connector. No, the wrong cable. How many gauge on the cable, and all kind. Oh man, it was. I didn't know nothing about that. I had to sit there to understand it. That was the only way of me learning, is just to sit there and understand all that.
Talk to me about mixing. Did David ever learn how to mix records?
David believed that he never liked mixing. And I didn't understand it at first. I didn't understand it at all. I said, why he doesn't like mixing. But then realizing what he meant by it was, David believed that there is no reason for mixing a record. David believed that let the record play. If you have a 12-inch, I'll give you a perfect example. Searching by Luther Vandross on Virgin Records. I mean, not on Epic Records. Luther, he got that record. He believed in having that record play from the beginning to the end, then blend in the next record to the beginning to the end. He he said that, what was the purpose on it, and why ruin the record, especially the people that did the record? The purpose of listening to the record is to listen to the whole thing of the record. Why, at a certain break, you're going to mix it into something else and do something else and let the record play? David said, I'm not a DJ. I'm just there to monitor the record. The record plays itself. I'm just there to monitor the record to make sure that the needle doesn't skip or anything, or goes right through the record, or anything happens to the needle. He says that was my job. I didn't do anything else. There was nothing else for me to do, just to monitor.
What was the point of the penny bowl, and did you really give away a penny refund after people purchased the Loft?
David, he was just an eccentric of things that did, like, I said the same thing. Dave, what's the purpose of saying, $9.99? Just what the heck is the 99 cents for? 10 bucks. What's the purpose of? Nobody's gonna take the penny. He says, no, man, I want to be different. I don't want to $10. I don't want. Why? It's $9.99. Take the penny. And nobody took the penny. Every time the party was set, there was pennies from the same last 20, 30, 40 parties. Those are the same pennies that sit there. Nobody never take a penny. And if somebody did, and anybody got that a wind of it, they got eyes on that. That person will get eyes on them. Because nobody never took a penny. Who's gonna take a penny? I could never. That was David. That was David.
Wow, he was interesting. Talk to us about the locations. The Loft happened in multiple locations. Tell us about them.
Oof, numerous of locations. Broadway, 647 Broadway. That's where it all began. The granddaddy of disco himself, David Mancuso. I mean, that's where it all began. Then after that, he went from there to 99 Prince Street. Then from there, he went to 3rd Street between Avenue B and Avenue C. And then he went back from 3rd Street, he went to Avenue A and East 7th Street, between 7th and 8th Street, or 6th and 7th Street. But it was, I remember because it was right there in front of the park. I forgot the park, the name of the park. Then from there, he went to 14th Street and Avenue B, another loft that he found. And he stood there for a while. And then after that, he decided to change. Things started changing, you know, property value, you know, renting is expensive and things like that. So he started doing, he would rent through Jellybean, because Jellybean owned, he bought the building for his mother. And there was a space that David would play in Union Square. And then after that, it came the Ukrainian Hall. And then the party life was over because, you know, things started getting, you know, laws started changing. A lot of, because of the 1970, 1970s, no, that's not 1970s, the 1980s, there was a fire at a Bronx illegal social club. And that illegal social club, that person that did that killed a lot of people. And after that, that's when the city started shutting down illegal, you know, clubs and social clubs and stuff like that. You couldn't shut David down because David, that was his home. You know, I have, you know, these are my friends. You know, do you have membership? There's no membership. I send out, mail out invitation to my friends to come to my party. This is my home. This is where I live at. This is where I rest. This is where I pay my mortgage. This is where I shop. I watch TV. You know, I use the bathroom. I take a shower. No, they couldn't do nothing to him. But things started changing after that. A lot of things started changing. You know, the laws, closing down clubs because of drugs. You know, they say drugs, but you know, what do you got today? You have bar lounges. So you shut down clubs, dance spots because of drugs, but yet you're serving alcohol. What is alcohol? Alcohol is a drug because you got people drinking. You're feeding them drinks. So what's going to happen? Somebody getting killed on the road or killing somebody, driving, drunk drivers, you know, things like that. So I never could get that, understand that, but that, you know, things started changing and, you know, records got more expensive. A lot of record companies closed, you know, so, you know, things change. So, you know, he started having the once every 3 months party. You know.
Celebrities. Did they come to the Loft?
Yeah.
Who?
Oh man. he had Lamont Dozier. He was a writer, and he did Going Back to My Roots. It was a main popular record. He came to the Loft. Eddie Murphy. Frank Zappa. Never will ever forget that. Frank Zappa, one day I was there, it was a Wednesday. It was a Wednesday. Wednesday, Thursday. One of those 2 days. But it was a summer day, late afternoon. The sun started going down. So now we're going into evening, but it was still sunlight. And all of a sudden, car pulled up, and I didn't pay no mind to it. I was too busy, talking on the phone and this and that, and taking care of business, getting the records, and checking off what record came in, what didn't come in, preparing everything for David and stuff, and then making sure that the decorations are being put up, and I had to do the decorations and all that stuff. So here's this guy comes in, and this one guy comes in. I didn't know who he was. And, hey, man, I see you. I just have to come in because I saw these lights and I saw the balloons and the colors. I needed to come in. And says, okay, no problem. Come in. Hey, you're welcome. Door's open. Come in. I was. So he says, can I be right back? Because I want to get someone so they can see this. I said, no, okay, no problem. So I still was on the phone, and I said, my head was down for a moment, for, 10 seconds. And then I got my head back up, and all of a sudden, it was Frank Zappa. He went and got Frank Zappa. And I said, oh, listen, let me call you back. I'll call you right back, please. Give me a minute, I'll call you right back. Hung up. I went and got David. I said, David, come down, check this out. I said, you got to come to the front. I says, why? He says, you wouldn't believe this here. He says, who's here? Frank Zappa. Frank Zappa. I said, yeah, David, Frank Zappa's here. He's he's in the front, right by the door. He's right there. I'm gonna let him come. He wants to see he wants to see everything. He wants to see it. Yes. Oh no, yes, let's go get him, let him in. So David got himself together. I said to the gentleman, and I told Frank Zappa, said, yeah, come in, check it out. And they heard the music, and they were overwhelmed with this big, humongous mirror ball and all the balloons. They said, wow, I feel like I'm in a wonderland. I'm in a circus. Wow, all these colors. Look at all these lights that are reflecting right into the balloons. And it's beautiful. He was overwhelmed. He says, we just came from 48th Street, 47th Street, one of those two streets there, Music Row. That was well known in New York City back then. For every recording artist, every musician, from any venue, any genre of music, every musician, every recording engineer knew Music Row, because they went there to get their equipment, whether it was musical instruments, track boards, cables, reel-to-reels. It didn't matter. It was there from one corner to the next, from one side of the street to the next side of the street. There was music shops on both sides of the streets. So, and they just came from up there, and somebody told them about the Loft, and they were intrigued. They wanted to come and check it out. They just came down, and they hung out for just, oh wow, for a good 15-20 minutes. And he was overwhelmed. He was overwhelmed. And he was asking questions about the turntables, and he was asking questions about, wow, these speakers. And then David asked him, what do you want to hear? He said, play anything you want. He says, okay, play. David played a record by Van Morrison. Oh my God! I know that what the album looks like. I forgot the name of the album. It's a very well-known album. It's a very expensive album too. And he played a track, and Frank Zappa and the guy that was with him, I guess his manager or publicist, somebody, or I know it could have been his friend. And they both were standing right there, and they were overwhelmed. He didn't move from that spot until the end of the record. And he says, I really don't want to go, but I have to go. I have to go. I really don't want to go, but I have to go. And David said to him, he says, you're welcome to come here anytime you want. And he said, you mean that? I says, yes, you're welcome to come anytime. It's an honor and pleasure you being here. It's and me meeting you. And that's what David said to him. And it was great. Eddie Murphy showed up to the Loft, dressed in black gloves with his gold ring and pinky gold ring outside of the glove. A lot of people don't know this. There was a sitcom on TV back in the days, the 1970s, mid 70s, late 70s, a black family. And one of the characters in the family his name was Rerun. And he got himself well known because he was doing the sitcom with this sitcom TV, and he was a dancer. He did some stuff on live on television. He came to the Loft, and this guy was partying down with like nobody. That's the thing about the Loft. Nobody cared what status you have. Nobody cared. It was about partying. It was about having fun. It was about enjoying the music. It didn't matter what you could be going this banging here all night, boom, 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 all night. And to somebody, they would say, that's his dance move. It didn't matter. It was just about having fun. Kurtis Blow was there. Wow, he was so very soft-spoken, very, 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 very soft-spoken, very, very intelligent too. I was sitting there I think it was like around 6 o'clock in the morning. I was downstairs, and Michael Gomes from Prelude Records, he was the AR guy there for Prelude Records, and he was downstairs with me. We were talking, and then here comes Kurtis Blow, and he was dancing and profusely sweating his face and everything, but he was having fun. And he says, Kurtis, how you doing, man? How's everything? How you having fun? And he was very, very soft-spoken. Yes, I'm having a wonderful time, and feeling great, and I'm enjoying myself. Wow, this is really cool. I love it. I'm gonna be back here next week. And we looked at each other and we started laughing. And he says, oh, hey, listen, doors open. You're welcome to come back. My God, Arthur Baker, another one. He was so happy to come there. I remember there was quite a few people that showed up. Excuse me for 1 second, let me fix this up. And they just, Arthur has music with him, and he brought in music and gave it to David. And he shook David's hand, and David they were talking, and David was showing him the turntables and stuff like that. And he was very curious about the turntable. It was, everybody was using back then, the techniques, 1200s, the Thorns turntables, but this turntable is way different from it. Put it this way, it took Sometimes it took 3 people to 4 people to carry the turntable from one end to the other to move it. That's how, I mean, that's how they were. I mean, they were, it spoke for itself. They were, and the thing was, the material that was used, the blue material that was used, the guy who made the turntable, oh my God, Mitchell Carter. He was an engineer. Not only he was an engineer, but he also did stuff for the airlines in their planes. And the materials that they used for the planes, that's what he used to make the turntable. Specific wood, everything from a screw to a lever, everything was done aluminum, but materials that were used from airplanes. He used the tone arm came from a Panasonic Techniques. He had something that was done, a piece that was from another record, another turntable. That's how he had designed the whole entire turntable. Like I said, back then it was like $2,000 to $3,000. Now you're talking today, you're talking $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $60,000. And that's not including the needle, the cartridge itself. That's a different topic. I mean, that's, back then, $1 million for a person like myself and you was a lot of money. Lots and lots of money. $1 million was a lot of money. Not like today. $1 million today, it's not $1 million. It depreciated. From $1 million now, the $1 million today is worth $600,000, $700,000. It's nothing. But $1 million back then, in the 80s, early 80s, late 70s, you were rich. You were rich. You had it. And I have to say, man, in 1 year, I would have to say David had to made at least in 1 year, maybe close to $1 million to $2 million.
Really? Just from the Loft?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realize he was making that kind of money.
Yeah, it had to be for a year. Yeah. I mean, the owner of the building told him, listen, I'm selling the building. And David said to him, I was there, and he said, how much you want to do? And the owner said, give me $1 million. $1 million for 99 Prince Street. And today's market on that building is 40, 50 million. Yeah. And
Okay.
David had the money to buy the building.
Talk to me about the Loft mix CDs.
David despised that. He didn't like that. He didn't like CDs. He didn't like CD. He didn't like, David did not like anything about new technology and anything about technology. He was very adamant about vinyl. And that was one thing that he did not like, especially the mixed CDs. He didn't know. It took later on in years for David to come to realization and acceptance on technology. And when When he laid that on me, that's when I knew there was something wrong with him, because he was very adamant about that. He did not like new technology. The technology is ruining the record industry. He said the technology is ruining the concept of making a record. You know, having 10 people, 5 people, 3 people making a record. It's ruining it. He never liked that. He says that CD is, there's no reason, in his words, there is no reason to make CDs to improve the sound. There's no need for it. You don't need to improve the sound when it comes to a CD. Record has a sound that has everything. What they did in the beginning is not what they're doing now. Now. But back then they took out everything from the background. And that was one thing he didn't like. If there was somebody talking in the background and they would while they're recording that record, or somebody whistled or something fell or whatever, David said it was meant to be in that record. Should never been taken away. You may hear it on the record, but you will never hear it on a CD. Now, it's different now. Everything is on a CD now. Now they don't take nothing away. Just improving the sound, sharpening the sound. There's no reason to sharpen the sound. Not as sharp enough.
Let's talk about the song selection for the albums.
There were so many. David wanted to compile. This was one of his things that he wanted to do, was to compile every record that he played, and he wanted to put it in all in one, like a setup of 10 records as a, like volume 1. Like this here, this record here, this record here is volume 2. There are a couple of more volumes to this record. So David wanted to do something like this, but all together. Some people said it was impossible and stuff like that. And David said, no, it's not. That's not impossible. It can be done. He wanted to have the originals on there, like Down a Love Town, Fred Wesley, House Party. He wanted to have, oh my God, Going Back to My Roots by Lamont Dozier. No Stopping Us Now. He wanted to have all these records that he played. He wanted to compile it all. And they told him, no, it's impossible. It's impossible. It can't be done. He says, no, it can be done. So he did 2 record set, compilation of the ones that he would normally play, but they were never, he was very adamant. He says, if I'm going to do this, they cannot be edited. It has to be that record played for 6 minutes. That 6 minutes has to be on that record. That other record that I play, if it was 4 minutes, it has to be 4 minutes, not 3 minutes and change, not 2 minutes. It has to be the exact minutes and seconds from the original records. He was very, very adamant about that. He really believed in that.
And you were involved in actually picking the records.
Yeah, he came to me. He came to me. He says, "Ricky, I have this thing in my head. I have an idea. I'm getting together with some people." I went to a couple of record meetings that he started and stuff like that, and got most of the DJs together. It was quite a few times I went to the record meetings. So he has said to me, I'm thinking about doing this. I really want to do this. I said, we were talking. I says, David, go ahead. If that's what you want to do, then do it. What do you want to call it? What's the name of the album? My Home, The Loft. Okay. That is your home. That's what you live in. You live in a loft. Yeah, that sounds good. What records you want to do? Well, that's what I need your help with. So I have you, and I have some other people that giving me a list of give me 5 records. She said, can I give you 3? Okay, it's 3 or 5. I said, okay. So I gave him, I really wanted this record on there that was called Stranger, that he used to play at Prince Street, on there. I put that on there as a maybe, a question mark on his side. And I'll get into that in a minute with that question mark, because he had asked me about that. I told him, what about House Party? Say a Prayer for Two by Crown Heights Affair. And the third one. Oh my God. I think it was either Going Back to My Roots by Lamont Dozier, or it was Ain't No Stopping Us Now by the Risco Connection. Risco Connection. I may be wrong in that, but it was one of those two, and somebody else gave him the same thing. There was a few people that was involved in this, and but I told him, I says, David, you're asking me and then somebody else and somebody else, somebody else. Why don't you, all right, you gather up all this information. Don't go based on what I say. You make the final decision. You the one that makes this, want to have this record printed out. You make the final say. And he said, Ricky, you sure about that? I said, yeah, why? Because don't put the credit on me. I just said. And then he said, when I said that, then he said, but then why you put a question mark on The Stranger? And I said, I like that record, right, David? He says, yeah, I know you do. But why did you put a question mark? Because I wasn't sure if that would be perfect with the compilation. Oh, okay. I'll take that under consideration. I'll take that. I said, okay, no problem. And he took all that. He took all those notes, and he did it. He, finally decided to, okay, this is what I want. This is what I want. This is what I want. And lo and behold, today, those records are expensive. You look it up on Discog, the Loft compilation. There's 2 albums, a red album and an orange. One is more expensive than the other. I mean, and you're talking $150, $200. Yeah, very expensive.
Talk to us about upstairs versus downstairs at the Loft. Controversy.
Oh, well, before you got upstairs, this is what I saw, me. I don't know what anybody else will see, but as far as I mean, before you make it upstairs, you have to prove yourself downstairs in front of everybody who's watching you dance. It was a thing, either put up or shut up. And If you couldn't put up, you couldn't make it upstairs. You couldn't, you was in, and there was a lot of people who were intimidated, very intimidated of dancing in front of, you're talking bright lights. There's no mirror balls. There's no balloons. There's no this. There's just a plain ceiling with lights, and everybody's viewing you. Everybody's at the getting food to eat or getting to the punch bowl to get something to drink. And everybody would get there, whatever, and they stand there and look at everybody dancing. And there were the people that was viewing, watching you, those were like the critics. They were like the newspaper news critics. And that's, if you couldn't prove yourself downstairs, you couldn't make it upstairs. You just couldn't. It wasn't, and it was very intimidating, very, very intimidating, very intimidating. I sat there one night and I was looking at people, and I saw people who were starting out dancing, and they were doing good, and all of a sudden they felt so out of place that they went and sat back down, and they didn't come back to the following week. They didn't come back. They felt intimidated. It was an intimidation on dancing. And it wasn't because of going to the loft or being at the loft. The loft was just a person who was paying a mortgage at a loft space. That was basically it. A loft space, a big giant space. And he was paying mortgage, like a house, a payment every month. And it was, wow. It was tremendous. It was tremendous. But you know what? You saw the craziest things in people when they were feeling good and they were dancing and they were into the music and they were just, it was just wonderful. It was just great. I mean, and it was nothing about, it was people of all kinds, people of all color, whether you were gay, straight, fat, skinny, black, white, yellow, green, it didn't matter. We didn't care. We didn't care. It was about having fun and meeting friends. Hey, listen, I knew majority of the people that I got to meet there were 90% were gay, and beautiful, beautiful people, wonderful people. I had such a great time. We couldn't wait to see each other again the next following week. And then when we saw each other, hey Ricky, hey so and so, how was your week? Oh my God, my week was this, my week was that. Oh my God, I forgot to go shopping. I got to do this. It was that's how it was. And the professions that went there, you had police officers, and they did not go there to do a raid. They went there to party. There were guys that I knew they were officers. There were doctors. There were lawyers. There were engineers. There were construction workers, foremen. It didn't matter. I mean, nurses, hospital administrators, this person for a city agency administrator. It didn't matter. We didn't care. Nobody cared what you did and why you did it. That was basically it. And nobody cared. Everybody enjoyed each other's company. Everybody enjoyed the music, and everybody had fun. That was it.
Talk to me about lofting.
Oh God. I can. I definitely can. To me, and I have to go on record with that. Got to definitely go on record with that. I'm sorry. Whoever came out with that concept, They're wrong. They're wrong. There's no such thing as lofting. There was no such thing as lofting. Whoever said that, they just, something's wrong. There was no such thing as a loft dance. There was no such thing as lofting. We went there to dance. We went there to party. Every person that went there had their own style of dancing. Listen, a person doing this all night, let me show you. That was considered a dance. And they're just tapping their feet all night long, snapping their fingers all night long. And they can have, a girl could be in front of them and they're moving like this. And that's what they did. That's what they did. That lofting, God, I just cringe when and even today, I see stuff on Instagram when some people say, well, let me show you the way we lofters and we loft dance. There's no loft dance. We're not lofters. We went to the loft. You're gonna tell somebody that used to go to the electric circus that we're gonna do the circus dance? You know, we're circusing. Come on, I cringe every time I hear that. Really, I cringe.
Those are the questions that I had. Is there anything else you want to say to help people better understand David Mancuso or the Loft?
Well, I say this to the people who want to learn about David Mancuso and learn about the Loft, the history of the Loft. Go to someone that knows. Don't read it. Don't assume that because you spoke to this person and this person has been to all of the lofts and knows everything, about, because let me tell you, I'm sorry, there's a lot of people out there that can pull a wool over somebody's eyes and they just don't get it. People say things and bottom line, you want to know about the Loft? Come and ask me. I'll tell you about the Loft. You want to know the real deal about dancing? Come to me. I'll tell you about the real deal about dancing and everything that went on in New York City. Because basically, this is where it was at. New York City, where it was where it happened. For anybody to say, oh, everything happened in Texas, or everything happened in Florida, or everything happened in Montana, no, I'm sorry. Even in California, and I'm sorry, you're a California guy, I apologize. Everything happened in New York. Everything didn't happen in Chicago. Things later on in the years, Chicago started developing. We were already there when Chicago started developing. They had, I would have to say they had a clue. They had some sense, but they didn't have, there was nothing, they were developing. They were developing. Everything came out of New York City, everything. And to all the underground clubs, spots that has something to do with it. And, that's where basically it came from. Everybody came to the Loft. Everybody came to David because everybody believed in David. They trust David. they believed that David had a good word. If David felt that you played, you knew music and you played well, David, and there's somebody that had a club and they needed a DJ, they would go like this. See that guy there? Take him. No questions asked whatsoever. Nothing at all. Just that one word. Just take him. It's okay. Good. You're playing next week at my club. Come on, check it out. That's how it was. That's how it was. There are many people out there that write things. I've seen stories, articles about David and things like that. Like I said, there was a lot of things that, that they don't know about David as well as I can tell you, and I know David, going to his home upstate New York, driving. David many people don't even know that David drove a car. David had his own driver's license. He had a small car and drove upstate New York and had a home and nothing but antiques. Many people don't know that. So for anyone that wants to know about David and stuff like that, or about the law, go to someone that really, really knows. Before, listen first, and then if you feel that person is giving you the BS, then come to someone that really knows. Come and see me. We'll sit down together, we'll have a drink together, we'll talk.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was fantastic. It's like an encyclopedia of knowledge. This is awesome. I appreciate you for spending the time to sort of share this knowledge.
I hope I gave you a good interview.
Yes, you did.
I hope, if you have more questions or more that, like I said.
So we're going to do a part 2 a little bit later, but the part 2 will be, I want to talk about other clubs in New York City and how the Loft was the foundation for those other clubs, right? And that's a whole other 3, because we've been on for 3 hours right now. So yeah, so that's a whole other. A couple months from now, we'll sit down and we'll do that conversation about, because this one was, I wanted to focus and give shine to the Loft. Now I want to talk about all the other clubs that spawned from the Loft. That was the seed that influenced all those other spots. So we'll save that for part 2. Yeah.
You will be amazed and you'll be like, what? Mm-hmm. What? Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Listen, I got to tell you, brother, I'm totally impressed with the work that you're doing. I have to tip my hat to you. I have to bow to you, because when we spoke on the phone and you told me that, there's some people are shying you away, pulling you away from New York because New York didn't have nothing and whatever. Oh, man, it's crazy. Believe me, I love your work. You are, I wish, one important wish that I have to say, I wish you were back then with me. It would have been an honor and a pleasure to get you at the Loft as my guest for free. Come in, no problem. He's my guest. No problem. You would come. I would have you come every Saturday to the party as my guest for free. And it was. I just love your work, and yes, I would love to sit down with you and tell you more. I mean, because a lot of the spots have the spots looked at the look down at the Loft. Yes, the Loft has something to do with a lot of clubs, and mainly one of them, Studio 54.
We'll save that for part 2.
Let me give you a breakdown, a quick breakdowns of Range, the group of guys, and I give you their names. Paul Cruz, he's the one that started Range. Originally, Range Music was supposed to be, like I said before, about a group of guys, myself and the others, playing music, but different genre of music, not one specific, like house or disco, everything, you know, Spanish, reggae, it didn't matter, just a full range of music. And then we were getting into doing that, and then our partner Joey, who's part of the Range group, used to work for him and also Albert Marrero, Joey Gomez, Albert Marrero, Hiram Cruz, and Paul Cruz, the two cousins, and myself. We're getting down to play music, but then since we do that also, but Joey decided he wanted to do more than that, which was sell records, because him and Albert used to work at a record store very long time ago. That's why when we heard something, if I couldn't get it, especially the imports, because imports were very hard to get delivered or sent to us. So we would go to the record store. I would go to the record store, pick up, quite a few copies. If David needed a couple of copies, then I pick up also for myself. So the Loft would have a couple of copies. I would have my own personal. So Joey used to work for a record store called Downtown Records. Everybody that knew about back in the days will go to either Vinyl Mania, which was a popular spot because Larry used to go there, and Downtown Records, Downstairs Records, and many other record stores, Barry's, Bates Records. If one spot didn't have the record, everybody would shop around, go into those record shops looking for a specific record. So Joey decided, man, I still have my old contacts. I used to, when I'm working at the record store, they would come to me. I would make contact with these people, and I would have records sent. So that way we have the record store continuously going. So lo and behold, he got in contact with his old contacts in the record distribution. And now Range Music is not only doing Range Music and having other DJs play there, but we're selling records. And that's where Joey said to himself, well, I don't want to change the name. So I'll continue using the name Range Music NYC, which is so cool because it's not only selling the records there, but not one genre. They'll have other records like I got it from there. It's from Cuban music. And if it's not Cuban music from South America, bossa nova, Portuguese, oh my God, Sergio Mendes, he's well-known Grammy Award winner. He's been in music since the 60s, so he's still doing stuff. As a matter of fact, he did something with the Black Eyed Peas some time ago. And it's a different type of, it's all genre of music, music from Billy Porter, music from, and especially reissue music from, our house music. So that is, so you got Paul Cruz, who started the music thing with having us to play music. Albert Marrero and Joey Gomez, they both worked out of Downstairs Records, and with their expertise, Albert Marrero, he's lost some touch, but you mention a word and anything of a conversation and it comes into music, and he'll tell you, oh, wow, he'll sing you a tune based on the words that you say. So his knowledge of music is amazing. And the same for Joey. Paul also knowledgeable of music. Hiram, forget it. Hiram started his thing with a long time ago, which was the Prince and Kings thing. And we've always been collaborating together, all of us together and playing. So everybody in that group has a little specialty, and that's why it's Range Music with all of us together. That's what I wanted to say, because I didn't want to say everything that Paul had did, everything started the whole thing about the Range Music, but there, all these guys, is part of the nucleus. Each one have specialty and doing things in music. So, Joey and Albert working in the record store, Joey working with, distributors and record promoters and record companies. So back then they were getting all the, he would get all the music. Albert was in the front, out there, with people that wanted music, and he was, he knew, what type, he knew you and he knew your type of music. He will pull you immediately, he would let you know, listen, brother, I got this, and he'll pull it out. This is, this is what you like this, you'll like this, you'll like this. And before you know it, of $100, you got a stack of, today you spend $100 on records, basically is what, 5 records. Back then you spend $100, you got a stack of records for $100. I mean, you got records. So everyone in the Range Music has a special gift that helps out Range NYC. Myself, being involved with the Loft, and Paul and Hiram, they're in the same era, because Paul and Hiram used to party at the Loft also. Paul is knowledgeable in music, but he's also a historian. He, history and music, he's amazing. He'll find something, and if you forgot something, he'll just, touch base with you and say, hey, listen, remember this? And then you'll say, oh man, I forgot about that. Wow, that's right, I remember that. And that's when history starts clicking into your brain, and you're like, yeah, I remember this and this day and this and how it happened. And that's, everybody in the group has a little niche about it. They do have a special gift, and it helps out one each other, and the knowledge, we spread it to all the new DJs, everyone that, the young guys who are very interested in the music. And we do have people that they go to the store and to the restaurant, because it's a coffee shop like restaurant. People hang out there and eat and socialize, and they listen to music. They, we got one corner, and everybody else got, and the restaurant and coffee shop is right in the next, right there. So we're close together, we're all in one. So, we have a lot of young guys that are so interested, and they like that, they listen to our stories, and they first thing they come into mind, they say, wow, I wish I was born, a long time ago, so I can be there. And because listening to you guys speak and the experiences that you have, I wish I can be there to have those experiences. And, we let them know, hey, listen, what we're giving to you in experience, now you can use that for the next generation. When you get older, when you get to our age, and you being involved with this, you can use this plus, and what we told you, you can use it for the next generation, that, and just keep it going. And that's what it's about. And that's what it's basically about with Range. We want to keep the music going. We want to keep vinyl alive, because there's a lot of DJs out there, they don't want to carry records. They, oh, wow, so it's too heavy. Listen, I'm 60 years old. If I got to carry a bag, if I got to carry a crate or 2 crates, I will do it, because it's, digital is okay. I love the new, I like the, I can't say I love, I've grown to adapt the electronic world today, and everything has to change, but I accepted it. The same thing with David. He accepted it when he was alive. He accepted it. This is the way it is. It's a new generation, new era. But vinyl is, picking up that piece of vinyl and placing on a turntable, and there's a lot of there was work involved to make this record. And that's why we respect that and we appreciate it. And as for me, you know, I love music, but there's nothing better than a vinyl. You know, vinyl it speaks a lot. It has, you know, it has a lot of history. It tells you, you know, wow, people work hard to make the record, even making the cover, you know, it has to go, you know, making that design and the artwork. It's a lot of work to it, you know, and you know, not to like today, you know, you can go today and I don't know, with $5 grand or $6 grand, you can make, you know, you can do something and you already got something out there, but it's in digital. You know, it's simple. It's 1, 2, 3, basically, you know, and, you know, it takes a lot of work and a lot of, you know, time just to make that one. But once that record is done and you're listening to it and enjoying it, you know, and it's all fun, you know, that's what that's what it's basically about for us in Range NYC.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Have a great evening and we'll talk soon.
And I'll speak to you soon.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.